Ngozi was a blind girl, and everyone in her community hated and rejected her. After her parents died in a car accident, her greedy uncle, Obinna, took her family's property and left her alone. She was hungry and lonely, so one day she decided to visit her uncle for help. On the way, she met a new girl named Adana, who became her friend and offered to help. But when they reached Obinna's house, he pushed Ngozi out and told her never to return. On their way back, a car hit Ngozi and Adana. The driver, Emeka, stopped and took them to the hospital. He paid all the bills and stayed to make sure Ngozi was safe. Emeka felt bad about the accident and wanted to help her recover. At the hospital, Emeka apologized to Ngozi, saying, "I never meant to hurt you. I will do everything to help you get better." Ngozi was touched by his kindness and said, "Thank you for helping me. I trust you are a good person." Adana, however, tried to take Ngozi home early, even though the doctor said she needed more treatment. Ngozi trusted Adana and agreed to leave with her, believing Adana cared about her. But Emeka started to feel something was off about Adana. She seemed too controlling and eager to take Ngozi home, even against medical advice. Watching Adana's behavior, Emeka began to suspect that her intentions might not be as pure as she pretended. "Now I can give the chief what he wants and become the richest girl of all," Adana thought to herself. "Doctor, are you really letting the blind girl leave the hospital? You know it's too soon, and it's not safe," Emeka said as he walked with the doctor toward his office. "She made that decision on her own. You saw it too. I can't force her to stay for treatment. I have other patients who are willing to cooperate, and honestly, I'm done dealing with her. I'll just let her go," Dr. Joe replied, sounding frustrated. The doctor picked up some medicines from his desk and went back to Adana. He handed her the medications and gave her instructions. "These are all the medicines Ngozi will need when you take her home. Make sure she doesn't miss a single dose," the doctor said. "Thank you, doctor. Don't worry, I'll follow your instructions, and my friend won't skip any doses," Adana replied as she took the medications. After that, the doctor left to attend to other patients. Meanwhile, Emeka tried his best to convince Ngozi to stay and complete her treatment, but she refused. She insisted on going home with Adana, saying she wasn't feeling any pain. Emeka finally understood that Ngozi had made up her mind. No matter what he said, she wasn't going to stay. "My car is parked outside. If you're leaving, let me drive you home instead of taking a taxi. It's the least I can do," Emeka offered. "Emeka, you're not taking us anywhere. I don't trust you anymore. You might cause another accident like last time. You need to improve your driving skills before someone else gets hurt," Adana said sharply. "Adana, it's fine. The last accident wasn't his fault. It was just bad luck. Everyone makes mistakes. Let him drive us home this time. I'm sure he'll be careful," Ngozi said calmly. Adana hesitated but eventually agreed. She didn't want to argue further as it might raise suspicions. "All right, Emeka, you can drive us, but be careful. Don't put our lives at risk," she said with an annoyed expression. Adana helped Ngozi get out of the hospital bed. Ngozi looked weak and moved slowly, but she pretended to be fine. Adana led her out of the hospital. Emeka quickly packed their remaining belongings and took them to the car. He stood by the car, waiting for Adana to bring Ngozi. Emeka felt uneasy, thinking it might not be safe for Ngozi to leave the hospital. Once everyone was in the car, Emeka started driving. He kept noting the streets they passed, making sure he'd remember the way to Ngozi's house if he needed to return. They eventually arrived at a quiet, empty compound. "So, this is where the blind girl lives alone. She's been through so much," Emeka thought as he got out of the car. "Thank you for everything, Emeka. I'm fine now that I'm with my friend. I appreciate all you've done," Ngozi said as they entered the house. Adana scanned the room carefully, observing every corner. She was lost in thought when she felt someone tap her shoulder. She turned around and saw Emeka. "I'll be leaving now. Take good care of her and call me if there's an emergency," Emeka said. I don't think I'll ever call you. I can take care of my friend myself," Adana replied coldly. "I don't know why you think I'm a bad person. I just want the best for her," Emeka said softly. After that, Emeka left and drove home. His mother, Chinelo, was furious. I dropped them off, but Adana is still upset with me. I don't understand why, Emeka said. My son, that Adana is hiding something. I don't trust her, Chinelo replied. Mom, I think you're right. Ngozi shouldn't be with someone like her. I feel like she's planning something, but I can't figure out what, Emeka said. Whatever it is, it's not your problem. Stay out of it, Chinelo warned. But Mom, stay out of it, Emeka. Focus on finding a new job, Chinelo insisted. All right, Mom, Emeka said as he walked upstairs. But in his mind, he thought, I need to keep an eye on Ngozi. Back at Ngozi's house, Adana said, Ngozi, you should take a bath. I'll fetch some water for you. Just sit and relax. Adana, I don't know what I'd do without you. Thank you for everything, Ngozi said with a smile. I'm always here for you, Adana replied as she went outside with a bucket. Once outside, Adana made sure no one was around. She took out her phone and called the chief. Hello, Chief, she said. Adana, what's the update? The chief asked. The target is completely under my control. Everything is going as planned, Adana replied confidently. Good job. I'll be expecting the package, the chief said. Adana ended the call. She grabbed the bucket of water and returned inside the house. Ngozi, I'm so sorry I took so long to bring the water. I had to fix the tap because it wasn't working properly, Adana lied with ease. She carried the water to the bathroom and then came back to Ngozi. All right, my dear friend. Everything is ready now. Let me help you freshen up, Adana said with a reassuring tone. After the shower, Ngozi felt refreshed and rested on the couch. Adana, on the other hand, headed to the kitchen to prepare some food. The kitchen was covered in layers of dust since it hadn't been used for a long time, especially after the tragic passing of Ngozi's parents. Adana cleaned the kitchen thoroughly before beginning to cook. As she prepared the food, her mind was racing. How will I take Ngozi out of this town without anyone noticing? I need to deliver her to Chief as soon as possible, she thought. She quickly prepared boiled yam, which she had purchased while they were on their way home earlier. Once the food was ready, Adana pulled out a small packet from her clothes. It contained a strange substance, which she sprinkled over Ngozi's plate of food. Smiling wickedly, she whispered to herself, Sweet dreams, blind one. Adana carried the food to Ngozi with a cheerful voice, saying, Hey, guess what? The food is ready. I made a delicious boiled yam for you. Come on, have a taste. Ngozi, completely trusting Adana, had no idea about the substance in the food. She happily ate it, enjoying the first proper meal she had in a long time. However, not long after eating, Ngozi started to feel uneasy. She struggled to sit upright. Adana, something doesn't feel right. I think I'm getting very sleepy. She trailed off mid-sentence and fell asleep on the couch. Perfect timing, Adana exclaimed. Now I can search for what I need without any interruptions. She wasted no time and began searching the entire house. Adana combed through every corner for nearly 30 minutes but didn't find what she was looking for. Frustrated, she decided to check the second room. Just as she was about to enter, there was a knock at the door. Quickly, Adana rushed to cover Ngozi with a blanket, making her look as though she was peacefully asleep. She composed herself and went to answer the door. Standing there was Emeka. Emeka, what are you doing here? You were just here a few hours ago. Why are you back? Adana asked, irritation clear in her voice. I just wanted to check on Ngozi one more time before heading to bed, Emeka replied, trying to look past Adana and into the house. Well, that's nice of you, but Ngozi is already asleep. She doesn't need any disturbances. Please just go home and don't come back. I told you I can take care of her, Adana said, blocking his view. Can I at least see her? Just to make sure she's safe, Emeka insisted, still trying to peek inside. Are you saying I'm not capable of taking care of my friend, or do you think she's not safe with me? I won't tolerate such accusations from you anymore. Adana snapped angrily. Realizing he wasn't going to win this argument, Emeka reluctantly walked back to his car and drove off. Watching him leave, Adana muttered under her breath, That man is becoming a real problem. If he keeps interfering, I may have to get rid of him. I won't let anyone ruin my plans. She slammed the door shut and returned to the second room to continue her search. After a few more minutes of searching, Adana finally found what she was looking for, a small box hidden in a drawer. She held it up and smiled. This is exactly what Chief wanted. Mission Part 1, complete, she said triumphantly. Excited, she pulled out her phone and called Chief. Hello, Chief, she said. Adana, do you have any updates? Chief asked. Yes, Chief. I found the box you mentioned. It's safe and intact, Adana replied confidently. The box isn't as important as the blind girl. I need her here within 2 days. Bring her to me tomorrow, Chief said bluntly before hanging up. Adana stared at the phone, annoyed. If the box isn't important, why did he make me look for it? Chief can be so confusing sometimes, she muttered. She began pacing the room, thinking, how will I get Ngozi out of this town without anyone noticing? Meanwhile, Emeka was at home, unable to sleep. He kept tossing and turning, thoughts of Adana filling his mind. She's definitely hiding something, and I'll find out what it is, he said to himself, before eventually falling asleep. The next morning, at exactly 5 a.m., Adana woke up and dressed in a completely different outfit. Today is the day. I'm taking Ngozi to Chief, whether she wants to go or not, she thought. Adana went to wake Ngozi and said, We're going on a little trip to a faraway place. A faraway place? Why are we going there? Ngozi asked, confused. It's been so long since you went out. I want to take you somewhere special so you can enjoy yourself like everyone else, Adana said, forcing a smile. That's so kind of you. I'm truly grateful for everything you've done for me. You've treated me like family, even though we've only just met, Ngozi replied with a smile. Don't worry about it. Let's go now so we can get there on time, Adana said, helping Ngozi out of the house. The early morning darkness worked in Adana's favor, as most people were still asleep. Adana led Ngozi to a car she had hidden nearby. Since Ngozi was blind, she couldn't tell whose car it was or who was driving. Adana started the car and drove out of town, heading straight to Chief's house. By the time they arrived, it was daylight. The gate to Chief's house opened, and Adana drove inside. She helped Ngozi out of the car and led her into the house. Ngozi, we're here. You're going to have a great time here, Adana said with fake enthusiasm. Oh, really? I'm so happy you brought me out, Ngozi said, smiling. Adana led Ngozi into the living room and waited for Chief to appear. After a few moments, an older man entered, smiling warmly. Adana, I knew you wouldn't disappoint me. You've done well, Chief said. Yes, Chief. This is Ngozi, and she's yours now. You can do whatever you want with her, Adana said. Ngozi, confused and frightened, asked, Adana, what's going on? Why did you bring me here? Shut up, Ngozi. From now on, you belong to Chief. Do as he says, Adana barked. Tears streamed down Ngozi's face. How could you do this to me? I trusted you. I thought you were my friend, she said, her voice trembling. Ah, look at her tears. Chief, you're lucky to have her. She's stunning, Adana said mockingly. Chief grinned. You've done well, Adana. I'll transfer your payment immediately, he said, taking out his phone. After confirming the transaction, Chief said, Now take her to my room. I want to enjoy what I just bought. Take the blind girl to my bedroom so I can enjoy what I paid for, the Chief commanded. These words sent a chill down Ngozi's spine. She thought about running, but being blind, she couldn't see her way. Fighting back wasn't an option either. How could she fight without sight? She fell to her knees and began begging the Chief. Please, I'm just a poor blind girl. I have nothing to offer you. Don't do this to me, please, Ngozi pleaded desperately. The Chief smirked. Oh, you have something very special to offer me. Don't worry. You might even enjoy it too, he said with a cruel laugh. Then he turned to Adana. Take her to my bedroom. Ngozi turned her face toward Adana. Adana, I know you're still a good person. There's kindness in you. I know it. Please don't let him do this to me. I'm a woman like you, she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. Keep quiet, beautiful one, and don't call me your friend anymore. Nobody is coming to save you. Just listen to the Chief and do whatever he says, Adana said coldly as she grabbed Ngozi and started dragging her toward the bedroom. Ngozi tried to pull back, but she was too weak compared to Adana. All she could do was cry and beg. But Adana ignored her pleas. Instead, she mocked the blind girl, making cruel jokes about her helplessness. Adana pushed Ngozi into the bedroom and locked the door behind her. She returned to the living room, smirking. "Chief, the girl is in your bedroom now. She's all yours. But take it easy on her in case she tries to resist," Adana said with a sly grin. "Adana, I must say you've done an excellent job. I'll let you know if I have more work for you in the future," the chief replied, shaking hands with her. Adana left the house, got into her car, and drove off, feeling pleased with herself. She couldn't stop smiling, thinking about the money she had received for delivering Ngozi. "Emeka, Emeka!" His mother's voice called out, snapping him awake. He sat up in bed and looked at the clock. "Oh no, it's already past 10. How did I sleep so late?" he exclaimed, quickly getting out of bed. "Emeka, we have to go meet your boss and ask him to give you one last chance. And here you are, still in bed at this hour." Chinelo scolded him. "Mom, I'm sorry. Yesterday was very exhausting. But honestly, I don't think I can go to my boss today. I have something more important to handle," Emeka replied. "What? What could possibly be more important than your job? Listen to me. I don't want to hear another word. Go get ready. We're going to see your boss," his mother said firmly. "I need to check on Ngozi," Emeka thought to himself. "That means I'll have to handle the meeting with my boss quickly and then rush to her house." Reluctantly, he got dressed and went with his mother to meet his boss. Together, they explained why Emeka had missed the meeting. Luckily, the boss accepted their apology and allowed Emeka to return to work. Emeka was thrilled to have his job back, but immediately remembered Ngozi. "I need to get to her house now," he thought urgently. The chief entered his bedroom and saw Ngozi lying on the bed, crying. "Please don't touch me," she pleaded, her voice trembling. The chief wasn't moved by her tears. He pushed her down and violated her while she cried and begged him to stop. For Ngozi, it was the most heartbreaking and painful experience of her life. She had never been with anyone before. When it was over, Ngozi curled up on the bed, crying uncontrollably. She whispered a prayer, asking God to take her life so she wouldn't have to endure such suffering. "Don't cry, beautiful. This was just a little taste of what I paid for. I'll be back to enjoy the rest after my shower," the chief said smugly as he left the room. As he opened the door, he heard the sound of the parlor door being thrown open. Standing there was Emeka, his face filled with rage. "Where is she? Where are you keeping her?" Emeka shouted at the chief. "Wait, how did you even get into my house?" the chief asked, shocked. Emeka raised his hand, signaling to the police officers standing behind him. They entered the room and found Ngozi on the bed, crying. "Sir, you're under arrest for kidnapping and abuse. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court," one of the officers said as they handcuffed the chief. Emeka rushed to Ngozi's side. "I'm so sorry I came late. I knew Adana was up to something, so I planted a recorder in your house. It allowed me to hear her conversations, which is how I found out about her plans with the chief," Emeka explained gently. Ngozi didn't respond. She just kept crying, unable to process what had happened. Emeka looked around but couldn't find Adana. She had already left by the time he arrived. Where could Adana be hiding? Emeka wondered, his mind racing with thoughts. Ngozi sat on the bed, half-dressed, her clothes in disarray. Tears streamed down her face as she cried. Seeing her in that state, Emeka's heart sank, and his curiosity grew. He needed to know what had happened. "Ngozi, tell me that horrible man didn't do anything to you. Please tell me it's not what I'm thinking. Your clothes, they're not properly on you. Did he touch you?" Emeka asked, his voice heavy with concern. Ngozi lowered her head in shame. The thought of explaining what had happened filled her with despair. She could hardly believe it herself. "Yes, Emeka. Yes, he did. I tried my best to stop him, but I'm powerless without my sight. He forced himself on me," Ngozi admitted, her voice trembling. Emeka clenched his fists as anger burned through him. Without another word, he stormed into the parlor, where the police were preparing to take the chief away. "Before you take this shameless man, I have a few questions for him," Emeka said, his voice shaking with rage. He turned to the chief. "What was her crime? What has an innocent blind girl done to you? Why did you target her when there are so many other women in the town? Emeka demanded. The chief smirked and replied coldly, Young man, I don't owe you any answers. This is just how I live my life. I prefer blind women because they are more loyal and humble than the others. Furious, Emeka slapped the chief hard across the face and grabbed him by his shirt. You're a monster in human skin. Who knows how many girls' lives you've ruined? You'll never come out of prison again to harm anyone else, Emeka shouted. Ha! You're just a naive kid. I'll be out of that prison before you even realize it, the chief said smugly. Emeka ignored his taunt and added, And as for that accomplice of yours, Adana, I know you won't tell us where she's hiding, but I'll find her. Laughing, the chief replied, Of course I won't tell you. I still need her for more jobs. Enough, the police officer interrupted. He grabbed the chief and dragged him outside. The police van, along with 7 officers, was waiting outside. They secured the chief and drove him to the station for questioning and further action. Emeka returned to the bedroom and gently helped Ngozi up. She was in visible pain and could barely walk. Emeka carried her to his car and drove her to the nearest hospital. The doctor conducted a thorough checkup and reassured Emeka that Ngozi would recover, but it would take time. What she experienced is beyond ordinary. It's traumatic, the doctor explained. Ngozi stayed in the hospital for 2 days, with Emeka by her side the entire time. He refused to leave until she was well enough to leave. 2 days later, the doctor discharged her, declaring her strong enough to go home. Emeka settled the hospital bills and helped Ngozi into his car. While driving, Emeka's phone rang. It was the officer handling the chief's case. Hello, officer, Emeka answered. Hello, Mr. Emeka. We've been interrogating the chief, but he's refusing to give any information about Adana. He's very stubborn, but we're working hard to get him to talk before taking him to court, the officer reported. Please don't stop. Make sure he talks. We need Adana to face justice for what she's done, Emeka urged before ending the call. Emeka soon arrived at his house. He parked the car and helped Ngozi out. He decided against taking her back to her own house, as it was unsafe and there would be no one to care for her. As he entered the house, his mother, Chinelo, was sitting on the couch. She stood up, visibly upset. Emeka, oh my God, where have you been for the past 2 days? I called you so many times, but you didn't answer, she said angrily. Mom, I'm sorry. It's a long story. Ngozi was in serious trouble and I had to save her. I didn't mean to worry you, Emeka explained. Chinelo grabbed his arm and pulled him to a corner. Are you out of your mind, Emeka? Why would you bring that blind girl into this house? I told you to stay away from her, she hissed. Mom, she needs help. Adana betrayed her and put her in harm's way. There's so much you don't know. Ngozi has to stay with us, Emeka said firmly. Over my dead body. I won't let a blind, cursed woman stay under my roof. No way, Chinelo shouted. Before Emeka could respond, his phone rang again. It was the police. Hello, Emeka. We've managed to get the chief to talk. We have some information about Adana and where she might be hiding. You need to come down here immediately, the officer said. All right, I'm on my way, Emeka replied. He turned to his mother. Mom, I have to go. Please, just be kind to Ngozi and make her comfortable, he pleaded before leaving the house. As soon as Emeka left, Chinelo stormed into the kitchen and grabbed a bucket of water. She returned to the living room and poured the water all over Ngozi. Now get out of my house. Your life is cursed, and that's why you keep facing one problem after another. Witch, you won't live under the same roof as me. Leave now, Chinelo shouted angrily. This house isn't big enough for me and a witch like you. I won't allow my son to bring a cursed person into my home, Chinelo spat, glaring at the blind girl. Ngozi sat there, dripping wet, stunned by Chinelo's harsh words. She had hoped that living with Emeka and his family would finally end her misery. But instead, it seemed like her problems had only worsened. With her dignity shattered, she slowly stood up, choosing not to say a word in her defense. But Chinelo wasn't done. She marched closer to Ngozi, shoving her toward the door. Stay away from my son, you witch! You've caused enough damage to him already, she yelled, dragging Ngozi as if she were a piece of furniture. Ngozi, unable to see where she was going, stumbled and fell to the ground. The fall left her injured, with blood trickling from a cut on her head. "Please, don't hurt me anymore. I'll leave. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am cursed. My life has been nothing but one problem after another," Ngozi cried, her voice breaking with despair. Chinelo called out to her housemaid. "Take this girl out of my house right now. Make sure she never steps foot here again," she commanded. The maid hesitated briefly, looking at Ngozi with pity, but eventually obeyed. She led the blind girl out of the house and abandoned her outside the gate, leaving her to fend for herself. Ngozi sat by the gate, unsure of what to do. She had no way of finding her way back to her own home and no one to guide her. The sun blazed down on her, and the heat was unbearable, but she had no choice but to remain where she was, sitting alone under the scorching sun. So that was the first chapter of the story. Curious to find out what happens next? Don't wait. Hit 500 likes quickly, and the next episode will be on its way. Share your thoughts in the comment box. If you want the next part of the story quickly, subscribe to our channel.